When I was 10, I wanted to take apart my mom's underwood typewriter. It was really pretty, different kinds of materials, shiny black paint and chrome and nickel-plated parts. It looked very organic, and I just wanted to see what was inside of it. I finally got a chance to take one apart when I was in my 20s, and I decided that, I'd try to make something out of it. I'm Jeremy Mayer, and I make sculptures out of typewriter parts.
For more than 2 decades, artist Jeremy Mayer has been disassembling typewriters piece by piece and then carefully turning them into remarkably detailed sculptures of birds, insects, and people.
I think the reason I do living things with the typewriters is that the typewriter has to be powered by us. It has to start with our fingers. So it's based entirely on our actions, on our shape. The designs of the components match a lot of different things in nature. I mean, I just saw that the first time I opened one up and spread it out. It all looks like pieces of plants or cell structure or feathers. It didn't make any sense to do anything else with it. I think the best path for a machine to take, path of entropy, is for it to turn back into something that inspired it in the first place.
Where most might see a broken and outdated machine, Mayer sees fingers and faces and more.
That's a wing. It's by itself, it's an individual feather. But what this is a typewriter, it's a type bar. It actually has the letters on it, and it hits the rubber platen and transfers the letters onto the paper. It's a raven. The torso is it's the back of Royal typewriters. You can see here, Royal. This is a bell. These are mainsprings that allow the carriage to come back after you push it.
Mayer makes his pieces within a strict set of creative rules. The first, only typewriter pieces to make the sculptures.
I had completely disassembled the typewriter down to its most basic components. It all looked like an erector set or Legos or some kind of puzzle. So I figured that I'd just do the hardest possible thing, and that was just assemble it as it was.
The second, as little modification to the parts as possible.
I used to alter pieces more. So the rule that I wouldn't alter or drill or screw or cut kind of came later. I'm still working around that one. Like if I do any of those things, you can't see it.
The third, the only way to assemble the sculptures is by using original typewriter parts, wires, bolts, and nuts. No tape, no glue, no welding.
If I didn't have these rules, I think you'd see that. You'd be able to see that I didn't spend enough time. I could just weld this stuff together, and you would look at that and you'd say, well, it made it to this certain shape. But for me, that's not enough. The interconnectedness of the parts is interesting to me. And the more rules I have on it, the more surprised I am by the outcome.
Mayer's rules mean that constructing a sculpture can take a lot of time.
The raven, it took about a month to do it. From typewriter to sculpture, the way I get there is, first, obviously, I got to get the typewriters. I have friends who repair them, who give me their broken ones. Sometimes people will text me a picture of a typewriter and say, hey, this is $50. And I say, yeah, talk them down to 20. I'll take it. And when I have time, I take them apart. Or if I need them, if I need a specific component, I'll take it apart. Then I have to take those pieces, organize them.
Mayer keeps the little bits loosely organized around his studio.
Lots of keys, like tons and tons of keys. And then I just keep everything labeled, but eventually it all winds up on the floor. Once it hits the floor, then I need to keep it organized. When it's on the floor, it's next to things it's related to, so I have ideas about what I want to do with it next. When I start to assemble, if I have a formula, I start to use it. If not, then I spend a bunch of time playing around, trying to figure out how the thing can hold its own weight. Like this raven's got to stand on its own feet. So that took a while to figure out, how to balance this whole thing. So there's a lot of assembly and then disassembly and then reassembly over and over again. I could assemble an entire arm on a full-scale figure, and it doesn't quite look right. I have to take the whole thing apart.
Mayer may spend a year or more working on his larger sculptures.
Full-scale human figures,
usually have components from about 50 machines in them.
These are the little bars that the type bars rest on. When you hit the key, the type bar comes up, and when it falls back down, it rests on this curved thing. And each one of these is from one Smith Corona typewriter.
I had to collect that same typewriter for about probably 6 years before I could even make those ribs.
And Mayer's rules can lead to incredible frustration.
If I were younger, there would be a lot more holes in the walls in here from throwing tools or throwing stuff. But I don't do that anymore. I just kind of breathe through it and it'll figure itself out eventually. I've always thought the art that's hardest to make is trying not to get made. In the same way that particles kind of try to avoid detection. It takes increasing amounts of energy to see smaller and smaller particles. I think art's kind of the same way, that if it's difficult to reach your vision, the harder it is, the harder it'll fight you, and the harder you have to push through that.
And injuries are also common.
I cut myself every day. I don't know if I'm bad at it or I'm uncoordinated or what, but well, it happens when you sharpen your screwdrivers. But I have to sharpen them, otherwise they wouldn't work.
But after he's pushed through, how does he know a piece is finished?
Sometimes I know a piece is done just by, I feel like I'm done. It looks done, I'm happy with it. Sometimes I know right when I do that last twist of the screw. Sometimes I don't know it until I walk in the room the next morning. But the last full-scale human figure I did, I knew when the Snapchat filter for the face worked. And it applied the filter. And I was, okay, that worked. That's good. That's done.
That kind of fidelity has made Mayer's work sought after by collectors.
Different people like my work for different reasons. Doctors and people into biology and anatomy like my work.
The hands are just made from keys. They're just like the hand. They're a mirror image of the physical process of what your fingers do.
I think when they're anatomically accurate, it's a good base for a personality. Like that bird, it's definitely just a raven, but if you just cut it out of the corner of your eye, you'd be waiting for it to do something. You'd be waiting for it to jump. It has a presence there. When I do the anatomy accurately, then that's a good base for creating a personality for the piece over the top of it.
Many of his patrons also work in tech, which might seem odd at first because, after all, their industry essentially killed the typewriter.
I think it has something to do with the keyboard, but it's also, I think, for tech people, a way to look backward and say, here's something we've kept. This is part of the seed of this good idea that we have about moving forward.
One might expect after more than 20 years of working with typewriters that Mayer would be an excellent typist with a love of the analog writing style.
No, I'm a terrible typist. I hate typing on typewriters. I'd rather write if I'm going to write somebody a letter.
And though Mayer's work is entirely typewriter-based, he is not precious about the old machines.
Another reason people are interested in the typewriter, like I'll tell them I take apart typewriters and they go, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. Like there's this sorrow, we don't feel bad for the machine. We feel bad for us. We feel bad for something that we say, oh, we shouldn't destroy that yet because we don't know what we're missing. I kind of do know what we're missing. That's the point of doing this, is that, oh, I want to keep this, I want to throw this away, this is junk. This was a terrible typewriter. It shouldn't even be used anymore. This one's really nice, this one's beautiful, or this one works really well. I decided that I'm the person that gets to do that in this context.
And while he doesn't enjoy typing, Mayer hasn't lost interest in finding feathers and faces among the space bars and ribbons of the old machines.
The only reason I can think of that I keep working with this stuff is that it doesn't get boring. It's still interesting to me.